think one of the areas we're already seeing mass growth in America, but it's going to continue, is in the health coaching realm. So if you are offering any health products, health coaching becomes so impactful because it creates action into your methodologies. Welcome, affiliated listeners, to another fantastic, amazing, and spring episode of the Affiliated Podcast. I mentioned spring because, gosh dang it, if I don't love springtime in Boise, as we just shuck away all the old, crusty gray of winter and bring spring and rebirth. And I bring that up not only because it makes me happy, and you can see it in the mild redness of my face, that sun is important in my life right now, but because we're going to be talking about a subject that could feel like the sun in your light and the growth that spring represents in your business if you listen to it. And that's going to be talking about a direct way that you could get up to 7 figures bottom line revenue in your business without necessarily having to lift a big finger or make a big lift to your business. On top of that, this secret we're going to be talking about is going to unlock better customers with more engagement and higher LTV, not just in terms of what they buy and what we're going to be talking about, but in terms of how they engage with you and the value that you bring. So with that, I want to introduce our guest, and then we're going to unveil what the secret 7-figure, as we really mark it up, 7-figure secret to your business is going to unlock and what it actually is. But with that, let me bring in our guest today, and we have Max Kramer from Chicago, the Windy City. Max, how are you doing today?
Oh, I'm doing awesome because, yes, spring is here. And when you live in Chicago, spring is like summer because you haven't been outside for 5 months. So happy to be here on the podcast, and thanks for having me.
Yes, and I know we don't have the same weather, but the similar feelings of that stuffed up, locked inside. I can't imagine how much more worse that is in a large city. So, well, obviously we're here for teases. We're here for open loops. We love marketers. We love marketing. But I was teasing quite a bit about a 7-figure secret, Max, that people need to know about. And that's what we're going to be discussing today. So instead of me being the one that tells and reveals the big secret, why don't you tell people what is the main thing we're going to be talking about that could transform people's businesses today?
All right, drum roll, please. So we are talking about adding coaching to your business. So
Boom.
adding an element of coaching to your business, which can add a lot to your back end, a lot to your bottom line, especially if you're doing it right. And I'm here today to tell you how I got into it and how I can teach you how to do it.
Beautiful. Well, we are going to jump right into it. Yes, coaching. And guys, this is a high ticket coaching. So the ultimate back end of any problem you're solving is the high touch white glove. Let me make sure that you have a person to call, to talk to get you to your goals. So if your product fits into anyone that wants to accomplish a goal, coaching makes so much sense. And we're going to talk about why this is such a big differentiator in businesses, specifically today. In fact, I will say I think coaching is more important today to have as some element in your business than it ever has been. And definitely in the last 5 years, it's really hitting a peak. And we'll talk about that. Before that, though, why don't you tell people, Max, a little bit about your background? Like, why are you an expert on coaching? Why should we even be listening to you today? I mean, we should be listening because we only bring on the best on the Affiliated Podcast, but those naysayers, those trolls of the internet, what can we do to disprove them and establish yourself as the clear expert for this conversation?
All right. I'm happy to do that. I think that the number one way to disprove any of that, any of the naysayers, is all through experience. And if there's any experience when it comes to coaching, I have a lot of it. I have been doing some form of coaching since 2009. So,
Dang.
15 years plus we've been doing coaching. I started off actually on a podcast similar to this, where I was giving dating advice back in 2009. So I was giving dating advice to shy guys and guys who just didn't know how to talk to a woman. And so I can probably go into the longer story there, which I won't, about how I got into giving dating advice. But let's just say I started the podcast, people listened, it worked really well. And so I grew this business of helping men with their shyness. And it went into selling coaching. That's how I started it. So it was a podcast that helped sell coaching, where I would work with them one-on-one. And that started and grew into, long story short, a business that I do still run, where we're helping men, we're also helping women, and we do 7 figures a year doing high ticket coaching. selling to people who have either purchased our course or selling to people who have followed us on our organic traffic. And so we built this big coaching program. And so over the years, I'd say from about 2012 to 2018, I really dive deep into internet marketing and how do you get customers and how do you build a coaching business to the point where good problems. I had too many people who wanted to get coaching. I was the only coach involved. So I got my first lessons in scaling. I had to hire other coaches because if you wanted to work with me and I was the face of the business, there was a 3 to 4 month waiting list to the point where people were even waiting, but it was getting ridiculous. I felt obnoxious selling people coaching that they wouldn't be able to start in 6 months. People want their problem solved now. So I had to hire coaches and work under me. And a lot of it, by the way, and this is very important for everyone to understand here, especially if you're a guru and you're the face of a business, a lot of people think that you're not going to be able to sell someone to work with a coach that's not a very direct representative of the brand. And I thought that as I went into it, but I didn't have a choice. We tested it out. Turns out people don't care about who they work with. They just want to solve the problem and know that they're going to work with someone who will solve their problem. So that was my first hurdle. Will people sign up for coaching and not work directly with me? Yes. And then I had another hurdle. Okay, I had so many people who wanted to get on the phone and I wanted to take as many calls as I could, but I couldn't be on the phone and do sales calls all day. Well, there are people who specialize and do high ticket sales. And then I had that moment where I thought, well, no one's going to want to buy coaching from someone who's not the guru or face of the brand to then work with someone else who's not the guru or face of the brand. And they're just going to be talking to random people that they've never heard of. But I tested it out and voila, it worked. I wish someone or myself could go back in time and just save a bunch of time and say, hey, you don't need to be doing all this work. So it turns out people are willing to talk to a salesperson, learn about a coaching program, work with a coach, and get results. And also, meanwhile, doing all this virtually, meaning you don't have to sell in-person coaching. You can have upsells to do mastermind and big events, but in terms of scaling, it's so much easier when you can do this virtually. So I got to the point where I hired over the years from 2018 to even today, hiring coaches to consistently work under me, do coaching, and hiring salespeople and a sales team to sell people into coaching, all underneath my brand. While now I can step back completely from all sales calls, all coaching, and just work on big level decisions and marketing. So that's how I got into it. I can also go into the next story, which is, well, how did I start doing this for other people or teach other people how to do this for themselves? But I'll stop there.
Yeah, I'm going to pause. I want to break down a couple of things. I think you said some really, really awesome stuff in there, and so I don't want to gloss over all of that. But one of the things that really stood out first that I loved was, I think, the concept where you're getting that time value of money, right? And a lot of people find this in their businesses. If you have an element of service, how do I alleviate that? But I loved what you said. I mean, there's multiple things I loved in there, but one of the big parts is we have to remember we're solving a need, not filling our ego. Sometimes those two things match together, but I think it's very easy to tell yourself that I am the solution when ultimately you're not always the solution. You might be the authority of trust for the solution, but you don't need to be the solution at all times. In fact, free yourself from knowing that you don't have to be. You could have somebody else be the solution. You're just the person that inspires that solution. So I think that's one of the big things with bringing those outside coaches in, realizing you could still solve that problem, which is just, I need somebody there with me. And if I trust you enough to buy this product, I'm trusting that you're sourcing me a high quality individual, whoever that might be, to solve those problems. It doesn't always have to be you. I think one of the great things too that we didn't say, though, that's amazing about what you're constructing, not only do you create scale on your coaching business, you actually create a brand new product, which is coaching with you, or just coaching, right? Here's my generalized approved coaches. Now, if you just are so committed that you have to just be working with your pen name, so we won't say Max, we'll say Trip, so we could delineate from the dating side of it. If they just had to work with you, well, that's quadruple the price of normal coaching. So your time value of money of, if you have to sit and do coaching, if you still want to, now you've created such a higher ticket price for that elite level of access, which I think is so impactful, because now not only do you create scale, or at least scale potential. But now you have a new layer of ascension that you could create in your programs and products. I think that's just really, really amazing. So and I just love to, again, like, hey, well, I can't do this, but you actually can, right? It's a system versus a person, and as long as you have good systems in place, that makes such a massive difference. So with that, I kind of curious, like, you kind of reached this point. I just want to delve into the mental side of this, of how you overcame this period where you're like, man, I'm hitting a ceiling, but I like what I'm doing, right? I have all this, I have control over every piece of this. I'm the one interacting here. I'm doing the sale, I'm doing the coaching. And really it's all yours. It's your baby and you loved it. But you'd realize, you know, just like all things, we have to let them grow. We have to let them drive. So as you take your baby and let it become a teenager, what were some of the mental things that you had to overcome to start hiring these other coaches and really bringing in the outside into, at that point, sounded like it was a pretty intimate and personal business?
Yeah, well, I felt like at first I was doing a disservice. So I was not able to help as many people if people had to be on a wait list. So I was not able to help as many people as I really could. Also, just to be honest here, I saw the coaching suffering. I was slammed with so many clients and I did my best to give it at all. And I still think I did a good job. Maybe I'm being hard on myself, but there were times where I'd get on a call and it'd be, I would have 5 minutes between calls. I'd run to the bathroom, forget to eat lunch. And I just wasn't the best coach I could possibly be. So the coaching started to suffer because I was putting myself at maximum capacity. And meanwhile, by the way, I was still doing all the sales calls. I was still creating content. I was still running the business. So I wasn't just this guy who was just, hey, my job is to be a coach. And if it was, then I'd be able to handle all those people. But still, every coach does cap out. You cannot work with unlimited people, which I'll put a pin in this. We should talk about this later because I know people
Hmm.
are going to have a question of, well, how would you scale one-on-one coaching? That's not really
Yep.
scalable. So we can talk about that later. But yeah, I just noticed that I wasn't doing the best. And once I got another coach in, I was forced to do it. That's the whole thing, is I was forced. I did not have a choice. And I realized that I'm building a business here. Yes, I'm helping people, but I'm also simultaneously building a business. And so I did not want to be capped. So I had to have those conversations in my head. Like, what do I want more? What am I trying to do here? And that just turned into, well, I want to help people. Okay. I want to help a lot of people. Okay. I can't do that all on my own. All right. We have to scale. It was just more of, I didn't think it was possible. It was limiting beliefs because I never saw other people do it. Not that they weren't, I just never saw it. And I didn't know that it'd be something possible because imagine this is like 6 or 7 years of me doing every sales call and me coaching the people and them talking to me and them showing up on the Zoom call with me for the sales call and being like, holy cow, I can't believe I'm talking to you, versus maybe somebody else. But that was also a hint for later. It's like, oh, maybe they did expect to not talk to me, so maybe this could work.
Right.
But I
Yeah.
didn't internalize that for
Yeah.
so long. So yeah, that was what was going through my head. Is it was it was really me being forced to make this happen because I wanted to grow the business and help more people.
That's awesome. No, I appreciate it. So, well, let me ask this: for those that might be in a situation where they're not necessarily forced, but that forced decision might be coming soon. Before we kind of transition into the how, because I think this is a lot of the why piece, and I think we've covered a lot of that. Why it's so impactful. We're going to get into the financials. I want to share a little bit of that and what it does to your business, but. Well, actually, let's pause. We'll get to the why they should, but let's talk a little bit about the financials. So, how did this start to change your business? So, as you were able to scale this coaching, let me ask this: like, what started happening to the bottom line in terms of the revenue that you were generating once you moved to this model?
Yeah. So once I was able to get a coach into place, then my bottom line started to grow. So that was almost instantaneously. Yes, I had to pay a coach, but I was able to make more sales. So that helped tremendously. Now, this is where scaling comes in and it gets a little tricky for a minute. Is once I started to implement the piece of salespeople, then the bottom line started to pause a little bit, let's say, because now I got to pay everyone to do my job. And so that was another hurdle I had to come across because we actually became, in a sense, less profitable for a short time because we were hiring people to do all of the work. However, another mindset I had to come through is you can't grow a business unless you're hiring people to do those things. So you have to take a little bit of a hit at first to pay those people, so then you can have your free time to then grow the business, or else the business doesn't grow. So essentially, yeah, it can be great where you're doing all the coaching, all the sales, and you're making all this money, but you're going to burn out, and your business will very, very slowly, without you even noticing, die, because unless you have a team in place that you're already paying to then grow the marketing side, but either way, even if you had that, you're capped. So you can't grow. So anyways, it was for me, and every business is structured a little bit differently. It was immediate growth, then it came back a little bit, and then we started to grow again, because then now, with my free time not taken up by sales calls, not taken up by coaching calls, I could produce more content, better content. I can get more leads and more traffic into the business to then come back to where I was. And that was a huge win, by the way. I want to say something here, is that I got to the point where once I was making the same money I was making, and I wasn't doing any of the coaching and the sales anymore, that was incredible. I just took off a more than full-time job off my plate and made the same amount of money. And that is super valuable. And that was very valuable to me. Doesn't mean I was, putting my feet up on a beach chair in
Yeah.
Hawaii. I was just working harder in the business to keep it afloat and sustain it and do the things that I became newly passionate about, because I coached for a long time. I did that. I helped a lot of people. It was great. And then I just started to grow, and my needs became, somewhere else, to be more focused on business, and less on the holding the hands of all the customers.
Yeah, see, I love that. Like, it's that idea of sometimes we look at the net profitability, or that bottom line, is the marker of freedom or not freedom, versus losing sight of time and focus, where it's not necessarily you gain more time, but you almost gain freedom of focus, right? I could really focus not on what is glaring right in front of me that I know, because I have to generate revenue with this, of these coaching calls and these sales calls, which are obviously replaceable. Well, you just prove it. They're replaceable positions, right? To putting yourself in your zone of brilliances in areas that aren't replaceable, and you could shift that focus. It wasn't necessarily, like you said, it wasn't a pina colada profit increaser, but it definitely was one that gave you focus to get there, right? And really grow that business in a substantive way. So let's talk a little bit about the challenges. Then we're going to get to the end, but I really want to kind of talk about how to build this, because I think this is one of these things that could feel intimidating for a lot of people. And you yourself even mentioned, because you're now hiring multiple people, maintaining coaches. How do you train them? How do you figure out how to run this? How do you find the right people? And there's a lot of questions. How do you even sell people on it, right? If you're not doing coaching now. But let's assume maybe you have coaching, but you just want to replace yourself in the process. And we'll go back and say, hey, I don't have coaching. How do I build this out? But let's start with, I assume I have it. I need to go out and hire coaches and salespeople and build out this system. So one, I guess I would say, is like, where do you start? Do you get the coaches? Do you get the salesperson? Where do you start first in the business? And what are the things you need to have in place to even make this successful, if you're going to kind of scale your personal coaching to many?
In There's many ways to skin a cat here, but the way I did it, I think, was really good, at least for me, where I didn't focus on salespeople first. I wanted to still be the salesperson, because now I'm not selling myself. I'm selling a program that is going to be coached by somebody else. So I needed to really understand how to create this pitch, which I already did, but now a new pitch to make it better, to then sell it better. So the first thing I did was hire coaches. Now, how do you do that? That is, I wish I could have a quick fix for you here, and a little button you can press where you just, like, all of a sudden have all these coaches knocking on your door. Unfortunately, that's not the case. I'm not saying it's too hard, but it's a little bit of a grind. You do have to do a lot of reach out, and you have to do a lot of interviews, and you have to do a lot of testing. So how I did it was, I started reaching out to people in my network. I started to reach out to people that I kind of knew about, but it wasn't in my network. I would just simply Google search, and I'd email people, and I would ask them, how their business is doing. Would you be interested in coaching? And of course, I had criteria. I can only afford a certain amount, so I can only pay them a certain amount. I needed to know that it's not that they had certifications. I don't care about certifications. I never had a certification as a coach. If they have that, that's cool. But I want to know the results that they've gotten for people in the past. And I want to know that they love coaching. If they give me any kind of inkling towards it's exhausting, or they complain about the people they work with and there's just no oomph behind them doing what they do, then I can't hire them, because this is what they're going to be doing, and they're going to be doing a lot of it because I plan on sending them a lot of clients. So they absolutely have to love it. I also like to hear from them that they're not really business savvy and that they haven't been able to get their business off the ground, only because that shows me that they're not some marketer. Not that there's anything wrong with that. I'm a
Right.
marketer, but
Yeah.
that's not their expertise, because they never cared about that. They just cared about coaching, and I need to know they love that. So it's the grind at first. It's not that hard, though, as long as you do enough emails. People are always looking for work. I found when it comes to business, when you're not selling something, but you're offering someone something and you're willing to pay them, you get conversations pretty fast and pretty easily, that almost to the point where I've emailed people and Kyle, they thought it was a scam. They were like, is this a
It was
scam? Is
too
this
good to be
real?
true.
Yeah. Like, are
Yeah.
you selling me something? And I'm like, I have to tell them, like, I'm not selling anything. I am, but to pay you for people to
Yeah.
work with you. So once I do that, talk is cheap. I would say, hey, let's do a trial. I'm going to sell some people for cheaper to just get in the door and work with you, and let's see some results. And I don't pay the coach cheaper. I just sell it for less, just so I can, get
Hmm.
people in the door. So I do
Which,
that.
by the way, how much more? What kind of discount do you give on that to kind of get that test rate? Because I imagine you're trying to accelerate getting some leads their way, and if it doesn't work out, like if it doesn't go well, you don't feel as bad because you put it at a bit of a discount as well for the consumer.
Exactly. Like half, basically half. We
Gotcha.
were selling packages at that point a lot less than we do now. But let's say if I was doing it today, it would be, half of 5,000. So we sell coaching packages for about 5,000, and we'd sell it for half. And if they were like, oh, a little less, fine. I don't care.
Hmm.
Just come in the door and let me have you work with this coach
Yep.
and see what happens. I've been pretty lucky. I haven't had a situation, I think because my interviewing was pretty good, where I had someone do it and then it didn't work out and I had to fire a coach. I really never had to fire a coach. And I'm not saying that like, oh, pat me on the back or even lucky. I just think there's a lot of good coaches out there who want to work. And as long as you do the requirements that I said, and people who just love coaching and want to coach and want to be talking to people all day and helping people, they're just going to do a good job. They just will.
Yeah.
And they've been in business for a little bit. It can't be someone who's totally green who, I've had people reach out to me before who want to, at any price, be a coach, do coaching, but they have no website. They have literally no experience. I just won't take that person on. It's like, there's enough people out there who are coaches, who've done coaching, who have the experience. I don't need to be desperate to find someone who's that new, even if they wanted something that was, cheap and that would help my
Yeah.
bottom line. It's not worth it.
Especially when you have such
So,
a large talent pool to pull from, too. Since these are remote, it doesn't have to be in person. It allows
yep.
people to do it on a side hustle basis if they want to. So it really opens up. I want to just put one other mention. I love that you said find the people that are like, hey, I'm not really that good at business. Because what you're really finding is the true believers and the people that are committed to this, that they wanted to make it a business, but they never actually wanted a business. They just wanted to coach and help people. So I really, really like that. I think that's a great way to, one, not hire somebody that is going to get distracted or learn what you do and just try and go do it themselves and essentially say bye. And you're continually replacing coaches. So I think that, not that you should be afraid of that, right? That means they have to be successful enough to think they could be successful without you. But it's just one less attrition thing to worry about. So that sounds awesome. Now I imagine we probably can't ask for your hiring secret sauce. You gave some great questions there. I do want to ask one little thing on the hiring. Do you have them do, since you're reaching out and kind of finding people, doing a little bit of cold outreach, when you're going through the interview process, do you do any sort of exercises or trials, or outside the discount and hey, let's see how this goes for you, are there any other maybe specific tests or things that you do, or is it essentially just talking interviews, kind of face to face, to decide if they would be good for a test?
Well, yeah, that's going to be just talking it through because I want to know what their system is. And because I know what it takes for a man to get results in dating, because I've been teaching men how to get results in dating for, over a decade, I would know based on what they tell me what works and doesn't work. So we just have that conversation. It's simple as
Mhm.
that. If
Perfect.
I can't imagine you're a business owner who sells something that you don't know what your customer wants or what the
Right.
results is. So
Yeah.
it shouldn't
Hopefully
be
not.
too hard, right? Hopefully not.
Yeah.
You know, it's as simple as what's their system? Does that system sound good to you? Have they used the system to get people results? And then I also, by the way, you don't have to just rely on their system. I have my system too. So I like to marry the two. I tell them it's almost like dating. I say, hey, this is how I teach men how to, date and meet and attract women. Can you tell me how you do it? And if we're just so not aligned, then it's not a fit. But if there's a Venn diagram there where there's a lot of crossover, clearly we teach the same methodologies. For example, it might be like, I don't teach weird manipulation pickup tactics. And so if they do that, it's not a fit. And I've had people ask me like, "Oh, do you teach like weird manipulation stuff with women?" And I'm like, "Nope." And they're like, "Good, because I wouldn't want to do that." Great. Okay, so this is a fit. And so it's good to know that you guys are on the same page of the system, or at the very least, and the most important, does it work? Can it get
Yeah.
people results? And that's it. And then again, talk is cheap. So if you get that down and then you do a trial with one or two clients, and then you get back on the phone and talk to those clients and you say, hey, how was your experience with David? Was it good? Did you like him? Did you get results? Are you glad that you worked with him? And you're getting positive response. That's it. They're hired. They're your coach.
Oh, beautiful. Well, that's fantastic. That's really, really helpful. And I want to circle back in a little bit. We're going to talk about if you don't have coaching in there, how to also use coaches and bring them to your business if that doesn't exist. But before, let's talk about the next piece. So we have the coaches. We found some great coaches. They're happy. They're mission aligned. We've proven out that the customers like them as well. Fantastic. Now we need to replace the sales floor. This feels like it could be something more familiar, but also something that would be very easy to make mistakes with, because with salespeople, you might get somebody that looks like a great salesman and they're great at selling, but not at selling in a way that you ever want them to, right? So I think there's always an ebb and flow with maybe even the nature of high ticket sales and high ticket sales that won't destroy your customer base or your business. So how do you go about building that process out? And then after that, I want to talk systems to make them all work together. And then we'll kind of branch into what happens if you don't have coaching in your business.
Cool. So there's two different ways to go about this. But before I go into that, I just want to say this first. It's similar to hiring coaches, but it's a little bit more on steroids because when you
Mm,
hire coaches, you don't really need that many at first because they will have so much time in their calendar that if you got 3 coaches filled up, you're doing very well in business so far. Okay. So the burn and churn rate of coaches, if you do it correctly, is very low. The burn and churn of salespeople is high no matter what. So we'll just say that. So it's that same process of you're going to have to do some grinding. You're going to have to find salespeople, which I'll tell you how to do that in a minute. And then you're going to have to do mass hiring. Now, I said before, there's kind of 2 avenues here. You are either a business owner who you're very lean and you're doing it all yourself. So I'll give you that method. And then there's the method where you have tons of money and you don't know sales and you don't even want to care to learn sales. There's people that you can hire to do that process for you. I do not recommend doing that though if you are a lean business because your bottom line is not going to increase and your margins are going to be very small because you have to hire now someone to do the position of what's called a sales manager who does all the hiring, all the firing, all the management, all the coaching to make sure all the salespeople are in line and they are doing the correct systems and they're hitting their KPIs, all of that stuff. So you're either hiring someone to do that for you or you're doing it yourself. Now, in my business and currently still in my business, I am the sales manager. So I am the one who we have not hired that position out. Maybe it's something in the future, but because I know sales really well and I also really like it, I am just that person right now. So I know that the best. So that method, this is where, again, it's not like a secret sauce. It's just a lot of hustle. You're gonna, there's a few ways to do this too. You can go to these big companies. There's like Cole Gordon and Jeremy Miner and all these, I don't know, Alex Hormozy doesn't do this, but big sales gurus, and they will sell you closers. I do not recommend that. That is going, especially if you have no experience in hiring closers or building a sales team. And even I've had a lot of experience that, and I still won't buy closers. They're usually selling you closers. Sorry to throw all these companies under the bus, but it's true. Got to say it. They're selling you newbie green closers. I've been through it before. It sucked. I wish I didn't do it. I want my money back, but whatever. You know, you're just so excited that you get to hire a closer and not be the one closing, that you kind of just hire anybody and you feel like you're going to get good closers because you paid for it. Just don't do it. It's not worth it. And it's a lot of money. And it's not a scam. No one's scamming you, but it's more work on your end, because if they don't work out, because we're humans, right? I don't know, 4 months later, they decide they don't want to do this anymore, or their conversion rate tanks. Okay, now what do you got to do? You got to go back to paying for more closers. It's not scalable. So you need to, here's one little hack. I go into all these Facebook groups, and there's like, endless amount of them that are specifically for high ticket closers and setters. And I go in there and I post when I need a closer. I post an ad in there, not one that you're buying money. You're just posting a post, right? That's an ad to get people to work for you. And then it's the hustle of reviewing their application, going through a lot of interviews, seeing their experience level, hiring them on for a trial, seeing how they do, sticking to very firm KPIs. Like if they don't make a sale in 5 to 10 sales, they're probably not a good salesperson. Stop here, rinse and repeat that whole cycle. Now, there's other things you could do where you can I've made connections with other business owners who do sell closers, but it's very attractive to them when they get in touch with a person who has a business that sells an offer that's really good and that gets a lot of leads, and they want to make their customers happy, people who want to learn sales and get a job, because they're promising people, hey, we'll teach you sales and we'll get you a job. So some people, they'll sell to the businesses side and say, hey, we'll sell you closers. But then I can come in and say, hey, if they come in with me, they're going to make this amount of money. They're going to do very well. This offer's been around. We're not a scam. And then they just want to make those customers happy. So they don't charge me, and then they, feed me closers. But there's also a cap there. So I have to make multiple connections with those people. And I still got to do the Facebook grind. You can also, other ways that I've tried but haven't had to as much, you can go on Upwork. You can find salespeople there. You can post on your social media if you have a big organic following that you are looking to hire salespeople. You just have to know what you're looking for, and you will if you've been the salesperson in your business. So I wouldn't need to tell you how to do that, because you've been doing the sales. So there's that. I can stop there, but I can also go to the other side, is if you just are not a salesperson, not a sales manager, and want to hire this out.
I think the hire out we'll definitely talk, and let's circle back to that when we talk about, so you don't even have a sales program, because I think that's probably a little bit more valid. I'd say if you're doing the sales calls and you have coaching in your business already, someone's doing those, which means that's kind of where I'd say if you're selling your own stuff, you probably are a sales manager without even just recognizing. Just acknowledge that you know how to do that. And I agree with you. I think it makes a lot more sense to understand that pitch and then train others on that pitch from yourself first. But we'll get to where that's not necessarily valid for everybody. So let's kind of go back there. Really kind of what you said here, a lot of this is a bit of trial and error when there's fast routes to go. You just need to be able to manage and understand that team, give them strong KPIs, I imagine strong quality, and then just know that there is a bit of a numbers game, right? Don't think you could pay your way out of it all the time. You have to understand the numbers, go through the numbers, get the right people in there. I like that you're doing a little bit of a test. One thing that I think a lot of people miss is salespeople will sell pretty fast, right? Like you're going to know off the bat, like, can they sell or can they not sell? And if you have to train somebody to sell, that is not what you're in the business of doing. Kick them out and find somebody else. I think this is definitely was it hire slow, fire fast kind of situation. Make sure you have that qualification in there. And then once they know they're not a good fit, don't waste your time. It's sales. It's production. Look at production. And if it's not there, get them out. So this is one of these things where I think it's there's always little hacks, but it's not necessarily a complex process. It's a time-consuming process. So before we jump into, hey, I don't have a coaching thing, one thing that I'm curious about is just, and this might be a very, very short thing. If it's very, very long, let's just bypass and say, hey, it's complicated. We could set up there's resources, point people where to go, they could do it, but just making sure all this stuff flows. So is there costs associated with that, like going from sales to coaching and then really from lead to the sales rep to the coach? Like, is there any technological enhancements or things that you really need to be oriented around to make that flow work as well?
So are you talking about like maybe like software, things like
Yeah.
that?
Yeah. Whether it's
Yeah.
a software, CRM, or whatever,
Yep.
just how you technically have that flow set up.
Absolutely. Okay. So not complicated. I can definitely explain it. There's just a lot of little pieces. So you're going to need a place where everyone can go. That could be Slack, that could be Asana, that can be Basecamp. I use Basecamp. I love it. I've been using it for a decade. That's where we have our whole team. So everything is done in Basecamp. So everyone can communicate there, and there you can host documents and so then you can have SOPs in there, and there's chats and communication. Very easy. Sounds like Slack, but it's a little bit of a different interface. I enjoy that. So Basecamp is where we all can communicate. That's where I add people in. Then from there, you're going to need what's called a CRM. So this is a place where you can manage your leads. Where do all the leads go once they've signed up for a call? Because you want them in one place to communicate with them. So we use Close. That's one of the, I think there's Go High Level and Close. Those are like the top two pieces
HubSpot,
of software.
there's
HubSpot.
Salesforce for enterprise options. There's all sorts of different CRMs out there for sure.
Someone recommended Close and I never looked back. It's very simple to use. Nice. And it's amazing. Just going in there, you can just text message and call and email all right from there. Search leads. It's amazing. So we use Close to manage the leads. Then zooming out of that, you need calendar software. Where can someone book the sales call? We started off on Calendly, and it was very good for a while. And then it caused some problems with scaling. So we looked into some other solutions, and I highly recommend. This is a company that I switched to. They're based in France. They're new, but they're amazing. It's Calendly for marketers. It's called iClosed. I think it's like iClosed.io. iClosed. And so it's funny because I always have salespeople coming in, and I got to be like, okay, there's Close, and then there's iClosed. Let's not get too confused.
Yeah.
So iClosed is super cool because we can get leads. How do I say this? We can capture leads who don't even book a call. So once they put their phone number and name in, and maybe they bounce or they forget because there's distractions.
Yeah, because they're trying to look at their calendars and kind of like, oh, can I do this? I have to check with somebody. And you totally space it. Like, hello, every time I've gotten to a calendar scheduling app, I think I do that at least 70% of the time. I just bounce off.
For sure. So, yeah. Or you're like, I don't want to do this anymore, but we've captured that lead and we can reach out to them and we can market to them and see if they want to do that call. But either way, it's cool because you can also move different people to different closers and change priorities, and you can have different questions on the application. If they answer a certain way, it's going to go to that closer. If they answer a different way, it's going to go to this closer. Now, we don't utilize to the degree of what they have there because our business, we want to keep it as simple as possible. So we just have a very simple application, and then we have, priority of closers if we need to have that, where, if you're a new closer, you're the lowest priority, so other people will get filled first, things like that.
quick question for you. Like, have you been able to track what like that bounce rate is of people that leads that go on to schedule a call and then don't finish that? Like, do you know kind of what that rate is for you guys that you're seeing? Hey, we captured the lead, but they didn't actually book a call.
We don't have that
Okay.
information. We could get that information.
Yeah.
There's so much data that you can get. You have to ask yourself before you get data, what are you going to do with that data? Is
Mm-hmm.
it just, if it's just a curiosity thing, you're wasting your time. So for example, that's a really good question. And there's something you could do with that data. You could take that data and realize, oh, if we have a really high bounce rate, then maybe the sales page isn't working out or there's something else there. We're just not really focused on that. There's other things in the business that are just more important. We're just, let's get as many people in there as possible. And who cares anyways, because we've already captured the lead so we can reach out to them.
Yep.
So it doesn't
Exactly.
matter. So that specific data doesn't matter to us. Therefore, I don't have a percentage for you of
Yeah.
what that is.
That's fair. Perfect. So, okay, awesome. So they're going from, so they're in the CRM. We've got the call scheduled. The closer comes in. Is there any specific technologies you need for that interaction? Because I know you have like PCI compliance, taking payments over the phone. There's some complexities with that process alone. So, can you talk me through kind of technologies you need to have for that piece?
You mean once they're on the phone, on the phone with the
Yeah, yeah. So
salesperson?
we've
Yeah.
gotten they're scheduled with the closer. They're ready to
Yep.
go. So then what next?
Yeah, we've used close to text them, to email them, confirm the call, send them the Zoom link. Now you're on the Zoom call. And for this, we use a combination of different things. We use PayPal to collect the money virtually. I'll put a pin in that and talk about that in a second. But we also use Stripe.
Mm-hmm.
And with Stripe, excuse me, with Stripe, you have the ability to use Klarna or Affirm, things like that. PayPal also has an option like that where it's, they can pay monthly and get a loan. So that's very helpful to use that. So if you're using PayPal, definitely have you should have the ability to use PayPal Pay Monthly, so someone can do a very lenient payment plan where you get paid in full and then they're on this $200-$300 a month payment plan. Stripe and Klarna also do that. I'm sure there's a lot of people in business who've been using Stripe and they have a lot of complaints about it. I will be one more to add that complaint. They can be very tough to work with because if you have a certain amount of chargebacks, that's up to them, by the way. They'll just hold your money and you can't get it. And it's a huge issue. However, it is cool that they have Affirm and Klarna. So it's pros and cons. If you want my suggestion, I would stick to PayPal. PayPal's way better. It's also, people know PayPal. So this is just theory. I don't have data on this, but it's a little bit, they feel safer when they're filling out a PayPal payment or getting a PayPal link versus what is this Stripe or what is this website that I don't know, and is this a scam, and yada yada yada. So
Especially internationally, it's definitely one of the more globally recognized payment options for sure.
yeah, absolutely. So we use PayPal, and there's a few ways you could do it. There's virtual terminal. So the fact that they have virtual terminal, it's compliant. That means that you can take payment virtually from anywhere. So we do a combination of, we can collect their information over Zoom, but we have to make sure it's not recorded so that their payment information is not being recorded on a recorded Zoom call. So once we
Yeah.
get to that point, we stop recording, or if we haven't recorded the call, then whatever. And then we collect their information to do virtual terminal. And there's no method here exactly, but sometimes we just don't. We send them the PayPal link and then they fill it out right there. If it's PayPal Pay Monthly, they need a loan, then there is no virtual terminal. We send them the link over Zoom and then they fill it out. And then we check if the payment went through. And then boom, they're set up. And then we get them onboarded with their coach.
Nice. Awesome. Well, that's freaking cool. So, the last thing is on the coach. Is there any technology you need to do for that, or is that really managed by the coach in terms of their scheduling and how they make sure they're meeting with them and the frequency like that? Is that on the personal coach, or do you have anything you're doing in your CRM for that?
So what we do, we don't have a CRM for the coaching clients. Really, it's all inside of Basecamp. So I guess
Okay,
Basecamp
all
is
inside
like
Basecamp.
it is
Yeah.
still a CRM in its own right. So yeah, what we do is we have a system where we have the coaches book a link, book a appointment link, and we send that to the person we just sold. and then they book their first call. So boom, now they're
Nice.
connected with the coach. But what we do is we have our salespeople write up what we call a coaching document. So what
Hmm.
does this do? This sets up the communication to say in Basecamp, hey, coach, here is your new client. Here's all of their issues. Here's all of their goals. And then below that on this document, the coach can write all of the notes for each session that they do. So we have this full history of everything going on with the client. And what's cool about Basecamp is in that document, there's comments below.
Oh,
So
nice.
now the sales manager, the coach, the salesperson can all communicate below that document. So that's pretty cool. So that's how
That's
we
cool.
connect everyone together and then can communicate based on each client what's going on, if they want to renew or they weren't satisfied, or if their calls are completed and they're done, everything's in there.
That's awesome. That's great. So it's just really seamless to take that nice warm handoff as we go back to before, alleviating those concerns of like, well, if I don't handle each piece, how do I know it all has high quality? Being able to create a very synchronized process from lead to then they have the close, and then to be able to transition that with full notes and full capture really seems like it makes a big difference. So I realize that we're getting actually close on our time, so I don't want to keep you too much longer, but there's two other big things I want to address. And one we know is relatively big, but I think it's the idea. So I don't have coaching in my business right now. I'm not doing, men's dating or women's dating. How can I really do this for me? So I actually want to back up and give a little bit of pitch for people to understand why I think this is so powerful. Is I think one of the areas we're already seeing mass growth in America, but it's going to continue, is in the health coaching realm. So if you are offering any health products, health coaching becomes so impactful because it creates action into your methodologies, right? So whether it's a supplement, one of the biggest problems you have with selling supplements is they buy it once, they don't even open up the bottle, they never take it once, and they either refund or it just sits on their shelf until they buy another product. But that means you spent all this time and money acquiring somebody, and then ultimately they never buy from you a second time. Whereas that coaching comes in where you not only get an elevated high margin purchase, what you really take is get commitment, and you become the source and the entry point of all the changes in their life because they had a coach that finally took them to that level, accomplished that goal, which means they buy more of your product, more of your products into the future, and you become a part of the reason why they really grow and change, and you monetize in the process. So you get a better, more committed customer, regardless of what you're teaching. You get a more committed customer that's going to buy from you again and again because you became the source of the major transformation of their life. So really, really high affinity and loyalty for those coaching clients. I imagine you see the same thing in your business and in others. But let's kind of talk about this of, let's say, whether it's health, whether it's business, if you're in BizOp, having BizOp coaches, whether you're in manifestation, if you need to be able to make sure the spirituality in the universe is truly collecting into your chakra to outward give you whatever you need in your years. Coaching matters in all of those businesses. So Max, walk me through a little bit. If I'm coming through you and I have, let's say I have a blood pressure supplement or a blood sugar supplement that really helps people help maintain their blood sugars. We know that that's a big issue with, let's say type 2 diabetes. How do you bring coaching into that business, specifically finding those people? What does it look like? And is it something that's easy for somebody to say, let me build this coaching program if I don't have one for, say, a supplement brand?
Yeah. You know, let's start with this. Nothing in life is super easy, right? But it's not complicated. So we'll start there. So yeah, if I just want to reiterate what you said because it's very important. If you are selling a transformation, a personal transformation of any kind, making money, becoming more healthy, uh, dating, manifestation, wanting something, personal transformations of all kind, all lend itself perfectly to coaching. What is coaching? Coaching equals accountability. So just want to add that, and people need accountability to get results, because how many times have I bought supplements or books and I haven't touched them? I mean, I'm guilty right now. They're in my kitchen. So how would you do that? How would you go about doing that? Well, first of all, you have to figure out a way of where do you capture the customer to even convert them to be a coaching client. There's many different ways to do that. There's the more hands-on way, which requires a lot of repetitive actions. Like you can email your customers and you can offer them coaching. You can call your list of old customers and offer them coaching, or text them, whatever it may be. More automated way to do this is having, once they've purchased the supplement or the course, to have on your thank you page an opportunity for them to do an onboarding call or just a free strategy call, which inherently is really just a sales call to offer them more help and guide them with whatever they just purchased to see if they want to do some sort of coaching. As well as you can have it automated in your autoresponder. You can send out emails once someone has purchased. They might not have saw that onboarding call opportunity, but now they got an email about it and say, hey, did you get your free strategy call? And no bait and switch. It is a free call. So you're not charging them to do the call. But once they land on the call, you're going to figure out what their problem is. People like to talk to people about what their problem is, especially if they're the ones who actually book the call. And then you offer them more of a solution. And what's cool too, and this is what we found because we do this for other companies, we found that it's this great way to have customer service. So even if they don't buy coaching, they're not interested in getting more help, they've talked to a human that is part of your company. So maybe they didn't get a receipt, or maybe they're upset about the product, or they're having buyer's remorse. Now you can prevent chargebacks and angry customers because you're on the phone with them. And so you can help them through the problem itself, or you give them the customer service email to make sure they can get help with whatever their problem is. So that's really cool. You never know if your emails went to spam and all of a sudden you get these chargebacks because they don't know what's going on, but now they're talking to a human.
Yeah. Immediate legitimacy through that process, which is great.
Yes. Talking to a human that doesn't sound like it's someone who is outsourced. It's like someone who can talk to them and really communicate with them easily on if they have an issue. So that's pretty cool. From there, so that's how it works, right? That's how you would actually capture the lead into giving them the opportunity to do coaching. And then everything else is what we talked about earlier, is the salespeople are the people who are doing those calls and then selling them into getting more help in the future or today by signing up with a coach. And also you can have follow-ups, right? So if they don't end up buying that day, well, then you can reach out to them in a month and you can say, hey, how's it going? How's the supplement working? Have you used it? How's the course going? Have you gone through it? No, I haven't gone through it. Okay, how come? Has it been hard? Has it been challenging? Do you want to have another chat to see if we can help you? So there's opportunities there, even if that sale doesn't go through in the beginning. But yeah, you will get a percentage of people who will book that call, and you will get a percentage of people who will buy coaching. I have seen it now in almost every single niche. It works as long as you're selling something that has a transformation, which most, if not everything on ClickBank does.
I don't know if you're
have
getting
that.
a t-shirt coach or, apparel coach. I mean, you could do fashion coaching, right? Personal styling
absolutely.
if you're an apparel brand. But if you were, say, just selling random gadgets to make it easier in your kitchen, like from Alibaba, might not be great for coaching for you. But I think most others said transformations are huge. And so that leads to the next point, because I think that's one of the things where I really like is it's not complicated. There's lots of different ways to do it, but it is kind of, there's just work that needs to be done, right? There's lots of work that needs to be set up. So a lot of people might be listening to this, and I hope they should, thinking, holy crap, coaching would really be freaking awesome to my business, right? I could add a 7-figure bottom line avenue that's going to be high ticket. It's a new strata of back-end revenue that I don't have to farm out to affiliates or third-party stuff. It improves my customer service, improves my quality rates, and also improves my customers' overall impression of our product, which is super, super positive, right? But man, this is a lot of work to do. When am I going to do this? When am I going to improve my business? So for those that are sitting there thinking, I don't want to do that, and they're like, hey, Max, can I just work with you? Tell them what that process would look like if they were working with you to set up all this stuff and bring one-on-one coaching into their business at scale with a reasonable speed by just having you do it for them.
Yeah, for sure. So we already have the systems in place and we know how to do this. We've been doing it for, over 5 years at this point, just for other people. And so really, it sounds like this kind of too good to be true. When you said earlier, when the first started the podcast, like you don't have to lift a finger, you really don't. We take care of everything. So that means that as long as you're willing to take an hour to put a calendar on your thank you page of the purchase from your product or course, or just write a quick autoresponder, that's it. And then we handle everything from there. So what does that mean? That means that the calendar that we put on your thank you page, or the calendar that you're sending out an email, is the calendar that goes to us. So we have marked and tagged that calendar so we know exactly where it came from. We have a sales team that can sell anything. And then we have coaches on staff that can do the coaching. Now, you might be in a niche where you're thinking, does he really have a coach that could do, help for diabetes and health? If we don't have the coach, I know how to find coaches and vet coaches through the process I really just taught here, and making sure that the coach knows what they're doing. And also, we are more than happy to have you do a run at talking to the coaches and make sure you're happy. So we don't want to we're not trying to have secret coaches over here and you don't have access to them. If you want to vet them and you want to have your conversations, we'll allow you to do that. That's totally fine. They're representing your business. And if you're like, no, I just don't want to do anything, that's fine. So we handle all the customer service, all the fulfillment, all the sales management, and we do it at a very fair split. So you're basically making money. I don't want to say doing nothing, because you are doing something. It's what you're already doing, right? You're already making sales on your front end. So as long as you keep doing that, then we take care of the coaching back end, and then you just collect a check every month. So we've been very successful. We do it in all niches, and it's my pride and joy. So
That's
been living and
beautiful, man.
breathing it for a long time now.
I love that. Well, and I just want to put another plug here, guys. Like, again, if you have any sort of high valued acquisition right now, your high volume acquisition, you might find in the back end has been one of the biggest challenges. As email gets more challenging, you feel like your LTVs are shrinking. Well, media costs are going up and up and up. This represents almost a little bit of a Garden of Eden, a breath of fresh air. It's the water in a desert to finally touch your lips and make you feel hydration once again. It's that hope of injecting bottom line dollars into your business, and especially going through Max, you don't have to necessarily deal with all those headaches. How do I hire the right salespeople? What happens if I buy the wrong closer? Do I have to train and manage and keep them motivated on top of getting the coaches? Blah. There's a huge potential of headache that could be eliminated and direct benefit to your business and your customers, which if you have more money to spend to acquire that customer because you have this back end, now you might it might change in how you're competing in what is right now a very competitive market, especially for supplement sellers out there. And for those that say, hey, it's too expensive, people want to spend money. The great thing about this is it's a back end purchase, and people do want to spend money, but they want to buy trust first. So if you're entering in at a lower price point for just what your coaching is going to be, you have an opportunity to over deliver on trust and send those people that are raving fans over to a product that's going to capitalize on that intent and give you great dollars for your great customers and continue to keep them buying and satisfied. So it truly could become a win-win-win for everybody in this business, and something that I would strongly recommend you get a hold of Max and see if this is something that you could bolt on. It's not necessarily effort-free. We still have to screw some things in, but do it without the lift that would require to do this all yourself. So Max, real fast, you just want to say, here's the companies that I really, really would like to work with, kind of the profile I'm looking for, and then how they could get in touch with you. And then from there, we'll let you go because your time, I know, is super precious. We really appreciate it. But I just want to make sure the people that are listening to this and say, holy crap, I need it, they know directly how they could get a hold of you and if they're the right person you should be talking to.
Absolutely. Well, especially if you are in any of the kind of big three, the big three being BizOp, health, and relationships, or any sub niche of that. So you shouldn't even be thinking twice. Those lend itself extremely well to coaching. That takes up, most of, of the people that, might want to do something like this. But even if you're in a niche where you're not sure, I mean, I even see some niches of like on ClickBank, like teaching magic and or teaching dance or something like that. We will talk to anybody, and we'll be honest with you. If there's something that is so obscure and we have a 15-minute conversation and I'm not confident we can do it, then we don't do it. But
Norwegian anyone goat milking. That's what I teach.
Yeah. Although I'm a sucker for a challenge, so I will always try to find a coach or someone who could do it. I mean, even in the survival space, I already have been thinking about the survival space. Like, I know how to find a coach in that space, which might be harder than, finding a health coach or a dating coach or an Instagram make money biz up coach or whatever it may be. I also want to say this too, just to add on, one of the things that I know a lot of people get concerned with is, how do I know if I'm handing off all these customers to you that you're going to treat them as well as I want to treat them, and you're not going to give bad customer service or some faulty coaching program that's just a bunch of snake oil. I will say this: our customer service is the most important to us, because I know that if I don't make it right with the customers that you have and give them a transformation, then they're going to complain. You're going to hear about it, and we're no longer going to be working together. So our customer service is pristine, to the point where I will spend money out of our own pocket to make them happy. What does that look like? Let's say someone is really upset about not getting the transformation they wanted in the 8 weeks or whatever they worked with. I will, out of my pocket, pay the coaches to work with them for longer, and I don't deduct that from the amount that the business I'm working with to give me the leads. So we'll do everything we can on our end, and you won't have to hear a peep about it because you're busy doing your thing. We'll be working to make every single customer happy, because they're spending thousands of dollars, and we know that, and we don't take that lightly. So we make sure everyone is super happy, and we stop at nothing to do that. So they are going to be happy no matter what happens. If we have to give them a refund, we give them a refund, whatever it may be. And that does happen from time to time, because that's life. But our refund rate is disgustingly and awesomely low. I'm talking like maybe 1 or 2 a month of the hundreds of people we're selling every single month, just because we care. I mean, I'll get on the phone myself with people who are upset. If my salespeople, my coaching people can't make them happy, then they talk to me, and I'll talk to these people for over an hour. I've done it before, to make sure that they're happy, not argue with them, but to get them the result that they're looking for, to make sure that they are. That's how much we care. And I wanted to say that because I know that it can be a little bit uneasy to just implement this company to do all the coaching and not know really what's going on in the back end. So that is what's going on.
That's amazing, man. So how do they get in touch with you? Because I agree
Yes.
that kind of commitment is so powerful. I think it's one of the things. Plus, you're not doing this, it has like a profit share component to it as well. So it really is leveraged on everyone winning, the customers winning, the offer owner winning, and you guys winning. So I really love deals, and I think partnerships that are structured that way. So how do people get a hold of you if they want to be a part of this trifecta of awesome?
Yeah, absolutely. I'll give you my personal email address, and it's Max A. Kramer at gmail.com. You can just email me. I want to be very clear here. There's another Max Kramer at gmail.com who gets a lot of emails that were meant for me. So it's Max A, as in Andrew, that's my middle name, Max A. Kramer, Kramer, like Seinfeld, Max A. Kramer at gmail.com. Email me. We'll set up a time to chat, and we'll see if it makes sense.
Beautiful, beautiful. Love this, Max. This was amazing. I really appreciate your time. I appreciate all you listeners out there. And for those that anyone, like I said, if you're in the big three, or you're ready to challenge Max with the kind of info transformational product he's never heard of, that he is about to find the coach or coaches for, please reach out. Change your business with a simple email today. And as we normally say, please rate, review, subscribe, do all the things. Reach out to us with any questions or conversations you feel like need to have happen in the industry that aren't have happening. And even though Thomas isn't here with me, I will, in my best Thomas impression, tell all of you happy scaling. And until next time, have a good one. Thanks so much.